All right, seems like we're good. I'm seeing it show up on the Twitch end. Hello, everybody. It is I again, Visceral Serenity, VSDH Development, and/or Steven, depending how you prefer to refer to me as. All of those are fine. I return once again for another website stream. Yesterday, I took a look at the website for Assassin's Creed Shadows, or that being the landing page of the website for Assassin's Creed Shadows. I went in blind, and I had a lot to say, mostly positive about the site. There were a couple of key points on things I wanted to return to, which I have handily written down as some iCloud notes on my iPad off to the side that you can't see. So I wanted to do a follow-up stream on this site to go over a few of those key points again, and time allowing, if I feel like it, perhaps to go over some other things too. Perhaps some other Ubisoft sites or some other sub-sites on the wider Ubisoft.com website, multi-site. So with that said, I'm gonna turn on the green screen filter and switch over here. And today, I have both my physical... Oh, all right, I was having issues there for a second. It looks like we're all good. My physical A14 Samsung phone, as well as my physical iPhone SE2. Um, I do not use, or at least I don't heavily rely on emulated Android phones, or like such as in the browser. I tend to prefer testing on real hardware, as in many cases I've come across real differences, significant differences in how websites actually render on real hardware versus just the Chrome emulation. And the Chrome emulators are great, and I do use them, just when like early testing generally. But I always test on real hardware too, and that's a core ethos of this particular stream. So on my key points, among my key points, and probably the first thing I'm going to look into is I noticed a pretty significant issue for accessibility. I have the page open on Android for the expansion pass. So I wanted to go and open that page on my other devices too. A little bit of an epilepsy warning, because the issue does concern that in particular. But at least on my Android phone, as soon as I tilt it into landscape view as opposed to portrait view, I have to be totally honest. I was originally going to look into this on stream. That I, as far as I know, I don't, or at least I'm not diagnosed with having any form of epilepsy. That particular issue makes me so uncomfortable that I'm not going to look into it on this. I wanted to do a little bit of testing to see that it happens. And in the YouTube VOD upload version of this, I will most likely go through the effort to blur that out. I don't know that I have it in me to deal with that flashing long enough to figure out why that happens. I think I'm going to do that off camera and contact Ubisoft separately regarding that issue, because yesterday when I was going over this site, most of the stuff I was going over was either not really a big deal or that big of a deal, or was mostly opinionated. This is actually a really big deal. This could harm people. So I will deal with this particular issue off camera and off stream. And if anything, I might make a separate disconnected video about it later, if I can come to a conclusion about why exactly that's happening here. Because it's happening on the emulated hardware inside of Chrome and on 2 real mobile devices, meaning there's probably potentially tens of thousands, maybe millions, of viewers of this website that would be experiencing this issue, given how high profile of a game this is, being an Assassin's Creed game. This is what I would consider to be an extremely big issue. So much so that I'm not going to be looking into it further on this particular stream. So, with that said, I'm going to move on to my next thing, which is not nearly as big of a deal. And for that matter, I'm going to be avoiding the expansion pass page altogether. I'm going to close this tab and not return to it because, at least for my testing, this issue does not happen on any other page. So, for now, I will bring these back, close that tab. We're not testing that page again anymore. Probably the next thing I wanted to look into was regarding the top black bar, the one where there's the Ubisoft logo. And I'm going to get rid of this tab here as well. Because something I noticed, I was testing on my Chromebook, a modern Chromebook released only a year ago. And the way that the black bar was coming in and out resulted in some perceived jankiness in scrolling from my perspective. And that did transfer through to mobile devices as well. Like where I would scroll up and down, but the black bar coming up and coming down from doing so is distracting and resulted in behaviors I wasn't expecting. And this seems to happen because the black bar only takes a single pixel of going up to occur again, and a single pixel of going down to completely go away. Because like I can literally do the tiniest motion possible to go back up, and the black bar comes back. The tiniest possible motion to go down, and it goes away. More than being a minor annoyance, this is an accessibility concern because notice the set cookies button. And here I was able to access it, but not always. Like, if I try to now, I'm not completely at the bottom of the page. There is one more link under the Do Not Sell, Share My Personal Information button. On this device, and I also tested on my Kindle Fire tablet, and I had the exact same issue. I cannot access this link. And I believe it is because of the top bar and how sensitive it is to shooting back into existence. And previously, in my last stream, I did not have my physical iPhone SE with me in the room. I do today. So I wanted to test if that was happening too. Um, let's so here I am on my physical iPhone. One more thing I do maybe notice on the iPhone, I notice a give feedback button. Is that rendering on the Android phone anymore? Maybe it's just because the phones are such drastically different sizes. I'm also noticing a help option at the top left on iOS that. Oh wait, my mistake. I'm on a different page. Me stupid. Um, Here is the home page. Okay, and in which case that's the same. And I imagine if I am on Android and go to tabs. uh, Okay, never mind. Everything is consistent. Because I was gonna say that would have been confusing, but on the same page now, I wanted to scroll down on my iOS device. I'm gonna close that and see if I have the same issue with that final link in the footer. So if I scroll down all the way just like that, I can access the set cookies button just fine. Hmm. Yeah, and for whatever reason, it looks like on my iOS device, this is not an issue, but it is on Android. Oop, my laptop timed out. Oops. Anyway, I wonder if it's a browser specific thing. Um, I'm going to temporarily hide that and copy this link into, because I'm on Safari on iOS, whereas I'm on Chrome on Android. Um, Granted, iOS, to my knowledge, enforces the same rendering engine across all browsers, whereas Android does not. But nonetheless, I now have this website loaded up on Chrome on iOS. And I get the usual cookie thing. I'm going to accept all of them. And let's now scroll down. All right, set cookies is accessible. If I scroll up and scroll down. All right, so is this, because here it seems perfectly fine. But then returning to the Android device, it sometimes lets me, but most of the time, not so much. It's also worth noting that in many ways, these are two different classes of devices. The processor in the iPhone SE is flagship level, um, whereas the processor in this is not necessarily flagship level. Um, Amidst the difference in years and release, I think the iPhone SE is physically more powerful, even though it's smaller and the screen is worse. But those are the compromises Apple generally chooses to make with their phones. Whereas with Android phones, that's not always the case. That might have something to do with it, but regardless, I'm interested in why this is happening on some devices. I have my iPad as well, right here. So I am gonna test this. I'm gonna open Chrome on my iPad and get to the site. Let's come on. Hmm. So let's Assassin's Creed Shadow Pacific. All right, so here I am on this again. I am going to be disconnecting because I do generally do this through cable. So I'm going to be disconnecting that and connecting it to my iPad and getting the output of that in place, which might take me like 1 second. So, wait, actually, hold on. Yeah, this is going to take me 1 second. Sorry for being slightly on a lacking of planning today. There is an app I need to install on my iPad in order to output this. So I'm going to hide this for right now. But I do want to test this just on one more iOS device that I have to see if this is some kind of Android only thing going on right now. There. So I have it working for me. Now I just need to go into OBS and switch the source to the other iOS device. There we go. So here is my physical real iPad. Except, all right. So let's just scroll all the way down to the bottom and see what happens here. Not happening on iOS. Okay, so I'd be willing to say that this is probably an issue inflicting Android devices more so than iOS. I'm going to switch back to my iPhone here. Um, I really got to adjust the timeout so my devices don't time out. So anyway, I'm attempting to go into OBS and adjust the particular iOS device. There we go. Looks like I'm maybe almost back in action. Here we go. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I mostly wanted to test the iPad just on that one thing. And I guess as a bonus, we got a brief look at the site, how it scales down to iPads too, which to me looks fine. But mostly I've been using my iPad for looking at various notes of stuff. So one more thing I want to see if this is happening too as well, and if so, this is going to make it a lot easier for me to look at the emulator. Okay, so not happening in the Chrome emulator, at least on my MacBook. I still do think it's because of the top bar, though. You know, I'm actually interested. I'm gonna go and grab my Chromebook real quick. I want to test on the dev tools on that, so I will actually be back in just one moment. All right. Alrighty, I am back, and I am hooked up to my Chromebook now, which the reason I want to test on the Chromebook so bad is because I had more scrolling jankiness in the first place on the Chromebook than I did on the MacBook, which I somewhat attribute to the difference in the quality of the trackpad. The trackpad on this Chromebook is simply not quite as nice. So and just a difference in operating system too. So it looks like it's kind of happening here. Because like the top Ubisoft bar is coming up, but not in a way that's as obtrusive. Like in this case, where the Ubisoft bar is there, but then if I return to my Android phone, my actual Android phone, the Ubisoft bar forcing itself to be present um, hides that menu. Looking at the two side by side, I wonder if it is the bottom bar on Android. Um, UI elements such as that can very commonly be the source of confusion and differences between what happens in the emulator you see on your browser versus a real Android phone. Because the emulator in the browser, A, does not show the URL bar, and B, does not show the bottom black bar on Android that has those three options. Um, I think the behavior is actually the same. I'm right here. But on the emulated version, there's no black bar at the bottom hiding the very bottom of the screen. Whereas on the physical Android phone, there is that. So if if I were to do a super quick fix, to be honest, um, I might just add more padding to the bottom of the footer. I think that would do the trick. That would be like a super quick fix. Eh, it's just demonstration for purposes. I'll just cheat and add an important so that there's a bit more spacing like that, and that would accommodate for a situation where there is a black bar. I'm pretty convinced that that would be a fix to this. Um, I don't believe I've ever set this Android phone up into developer mode, which is probably something I should do so I could test that on a real phone as well. But in my opinion, that's probably the easiest quick solution is just add more padding so that when this issue occurs, because like imagine if there were a black bar at at the bottom here, add enough padding at least so that the set cookies button would most likely be above it, in case that menu does come up and is forced to come up. The longer solution to this would be to adjust how many pixels it takes for the Ubisoft like top header to show up. It does appear to show up in just one pixel of scrolling up. I think the other fix to this, in addition to adding more padding to the bottom, huh? Actually, hold on. It looks like the issue described was actually happening earlier. What happens if I get rid of my padding? Okay. Um. Well, while I still stand by the point I made regarding the black bar that shows up on real Android phones and does not show up on the emulator, it does appear I have replicated the glitch on the emulator after all. In which situation, my my suggestion to add padding is actually viable. I might actually make that slightly bigger. Because yeah, at least in this case, that issue is happening, but the set cookies button is still accessible, and I am confident that a fix along these lines, as quick and hacky as it might be, would fix the issue and increase accessibility. In which case, if there's no other downsides to doing it, increased accessibility trumps all else, in my opinion. And every link in the footer should be accessible for everyone. So that is a quick fix that would apply. But I also did want to take a quick peek at the code going on here. What makes this menu come up and disappear exactly? I'm basically gonna check for any like unique class or ID. Um, Probably it's gonna be this, and I'm gonna see if there's any script floating where this shows up. I'm gonna copy that. And who knows how useful this will be, because they might be storing all of their scripts on a CDN that might be hard to immediately know which script it is just from searching through the source tab. Uh, yeah, I don't think it's that. Nope, not that. I don't think it's going to be in there. Hmm. Either that or does one pixel show up anywhere? Because I'm very convinced it's a one pixel difference. I don't know. It would probably take me too long to find exactly the file that is in control of this component, even if it is available in sources. But I am convinced that the fix here is twofold. One, add padding to more padding to the bottom of the footer to accommodate for this. That would be a super quick fix and increase accessibility. And make it take more than one pixel either up or down for this top Ubisoft menu to come up. I would honestly recommend like 5 or 10 instead of one, because in some cases, especially on mobile devices, there can be snapback that that can apply and contribute to that. And making the threshold larger than one pixel is what I think would be a viable fix to this particular issue. All right, so I guess that's most of what I wanted to say on that particular point. So I'll scroll back to the top and move on from that. But this is going to lead me directly into my next point of something else I wanted to look into regarding responsive design. Um, and with this, I can strictly stick to the browser. Is I have noticed when you scale the page down and scale it back up, at least this was my experience yesterday. Um, it never returns back to the desktop menu. And in the interest of speed, because I'm no longer interested in performance testing, I am going to return to my MacBook Air so that when I'm doing stuff in the dev tools, it's going to be nice and fast. My 130 whatever dollar Chromebook was not necessarily meant for being a development machine the way that this thing is. There we go. So, as I was saying, mobile menu, and then I scale back up, but the mobile menu never turns back into the desktop menu. That was something I had noticed last stream. So like if I refresh the page, here is the desktop menu, right? So like you have these menus, it's not like a hamburger or anything. Um, and then I scale the window down, which I am gonna do. And I'm doing this because this is a real use case, right? Like people might have a window here, they might have a window there, they might have something else open. Not everybody views a browser in full screen. Like right, like imagine having like a browser on half view and then maybe like a note-taking application on the other half. That's extremely common. I imagine every student across all age groups would use their computer that way if they have a computer like this. So in that way, the mobile view, that might almost be mistermed because really it is a completely viable view for desktop as well. And then we scale back up, but yet the menu doesn't return. Um, I consider this somewhat of a minor issue in this situation because the given menu here still contains everything. And if this was the way that the site was anyway, I would say that's fine. But I did want to take a look into it to at least see if I can come to an understanding of why it is happening. Because the way I would usually build this would be to use CSS media queries, where either there's like a min width or a max width, and as long as you're within or without that threshold that's set, um, it would adjust the given CSS classes. Um, if not with a display none, then with something else to make it visually hidden and to only show the version that should be shown. Um, this could be done through literally having two separate renderings of the menu, hiding one and showing the other, given a media query. It could be done by adjusting the CSS of the HTML structure and just rendering it once, which, if feasible and time allowing, would be the preferred way, just because there would be less markup in that case. In any situation, it would flip back and forth. So I'm actually very curious to see what kind of approach that they're taking here, and why the desktop menu never returns. Because I don't know that I've actually ever come across that in a website before. As I said, in terms of site usability and accessibility, I don't really consider this that big of a deal, because the hamburger version of the menu is just as usable and has the exact same content in any case. I'm just interested to see what's going on here, just from a coding perspective, how they approach this, and if in the situation the powers that be behind this website at Ubisoft did want this adjusted, what might be able to be done about it. So let's see. It looks like the navigation is right here. So I'm just gonna kind of open as much of this as I can, with the understanding it starts here, and just see what exactly happened. And if it's like a lot else on this site, this could be some very difficult to find JavaScript that I might not be able to directly interact with in this particular stream. But let's see. Okay, so it looks like there is some CSS to. Okay, so yeah, they're kind of taking the second approach I was explaining, where there is CSS that gets put in place to hide it, and slash restructure it. So like to restructure it and hide it, until it's needed. And that is to say, I do believe that this HTML is the same HTML that would be present on the desktop version. So from that approach, I appreciate it. Yeah, and they're using a pretty standard active when you click on the button. Um, this aspect of the menu is perfectly screen reader accessible, so they also did account for things like that as well. I recall looking into that yesterday. But then why exactly does it not come back? Slash the mobile menu stays. Because like it seems that there's something that adds the display flex there as it should, but not in the way of using a media query. Right. So I'm sure that this button exists, right? Let's see. It actually does exist. As is. Um. So yeah, the button, and yeah, it looks like that's what's in here. So game site navigation, main mobile. Okay, so there is a display none that's taking precedence. Obviously, if I f around, and I will find out. I apologize. I very rarely use crass language on this stream. That's about the closest to crass language I'll ever do. So I want to pay attention to this. Hmm. Am I mistaken about what this button was? I would have assumed that something with this div would have to do with mobile, especially because things about it do change. Oh, is that this? The Discover AC Shadows expansion? No, I think it's just a display class that's applied to other things and applies to this too. Um, I'm interested enough to see what happens if I delete this element. Okay, so I can delete that and the mobile menu is still there. So that is not the mobile menu. Um, Hamburger container. So I am going to copy this class, refresh the page in desktop, and see if this exists in the code to any capacity. And yeah, it's right here. So this is what I want to study and look at. And as it stands, it is set to display none. So what happens when I get small enough to that particular element? Yes, so a display flex that was not there before did get added, and that is what makes this show up. So I'm interested. Um, okay, it looks like that particular file is not of use to me. I guess I could access the file. Okay, oh, actually, it looks like this is where all of the relevant files are. Let me double click that and double click that just for future reference. Um, so does the site use media queries at all? Sometimes. And it looks like their breakpoint is around 1248. All right, so it looks like this is potentially the breakpoint, or at least one breakpoint rendered in this style sheet, where it will go into this view. And was that the breakpoint where it turns into a mobile menu? One, two. No. So it looks like the mobile menu breakpoint. Oh, I am also seeing a little bit of overlapping on certain sizes. At least for a few pixels, but it looks like I missed that exact number. I'm going to refresh again. This is happening. So it turns into the hamburger view. Got to go slower and be a little more careful here. Uh, so it looks like 1220 pixels. And you can't see this, but 1220 as a number occurs twice, both of which in things that I do not believe are directly relevant to this. Because yeah, this seems to be targeting an attribute, so not directly relevant. I am curious. Does the pixel below it? No, and the pixel below it, the pixel above it shows up a few times. Um, Not in the context of that though. And that leads me to believe, well, there are media queries on this site. I don't think that's what they're doing here. But as long as I had the JavaScript, or potentially their main JavaScript file open. Hold on. I'm actually gonna. Oh, my. Ah, one more thing I gotta troubleshoot. My keyboard menu is glitching out again anyway, so I'm just gonna move this out of the way for now. Um, yeah. So for my keyboard view, that is. Okay, and obviously this has been compiled. There's a lot of variable names that are just single characters, or compressed rather. Looks like I have a spammer to deal with later. I'm too lazy to deal with that right now. Um, there's no such thing as cheap viewers, by the way. That doesn't exist. But there does seem to be some JavaScript here looking at inner width if it's smaller than 1220. Is that happening anywhere else except here? Nope. It looks like this is the only area where that's happening. Yeah, at least at first glance, I could only begin to speculate what most of this code is actually doing without like deep diving into it. But there is a check for if the inner width is below 1220 pixels or not. And I believe that's what's resulting in this. Um, I'm not completely confident in that, but given the lack of media queries I'm seeing surrounding these items, it appears they're taking a JavaScript approach to this, but not one that returns the menu into existing when you reach a larger size again. So I guess that's most of what I have to say on that. That is technically a bug. If anything, the bigger thing I found was that there are some sizes where there's overlap, like with that help button or link with the help link. Granted, that only happened for a few pixels. Um, if I were the team lead on this site, I would probably opt to fix that sooner. Um, and then to fix this. And to be clear, not that there's anything wrong with the JavaScript approach as opposed to a CSS media query approach. It's less common in the context of what's being built out here. But there's certainly nothing wrong with doing it that way. Um, I suppose in this case you could argue technically it is just because of an apparent bug where it should return to the desktop version of the menu, but it doesn't. Um, Not the biggest deal in the world. I would fix the overlap thing though. Let's see what other. Right. So, and as long as we're on the topic of the menu, one of the other really big things I was having was both keyboard and screen reader accessibility issues. Or sorry, screen reader accessibility and keyboard accessibility issues when it comes to these submenus. And I was testing out with a few things because there are a few things I find interesting with how they went about building this. Most of the time when I see menus like this, I'm used to seeing ULLIs. Um, they chose to go with everything being a div, which, given proper syntax from that point, is not necessarily bad. Divs are versatile enough that they can be made semantic in the same in similar ways to using ULLI. I would still consider it a compromise, but it's a compromise that can be made right. In this situation, I was thinking about this too. I reviewed my previous stream on this point, and there's a couple of things. So first of all, I noticed that there's already a hidden true. I noticed that in the previous stream, and that is still there even when the menu is expanded. What I didn't notice last time, and I did when I was reviewing the stream, is that there's tab index -1. And if you, I was reviewing the MDN page on Tab Index, and they talk about the difference between 0 and 1 and using anything else. They recommend using either 0 or -1 as Tab Index. And so, like, Tab Index -1 may be useful for elements that should not be navigated to directly using the tab key. -1, -1. So my assumption is that this is a default state, right? And it's a default state that's supposed to change. So, like, if the menu is open, which I'm gonna cheat and apply a hover so that it stays open. I was testing with this earlier, and this will work. Or at least it was earlier. I'm pretty sure hovering over this will do the trick. Yeah. So if I hover it and keep it open, when it's in a state where it's open, I think the intent was for aria hidden to be false and tab index to change to 0 on all of these items. So I'm kind of manually doing what I think was the intent. And if so, this is not improperly coded as much as it's just incomplete. Like, where, like, if if this is what they're doing, I think this is a good approach in the context where things are changing and toggling as they should. And you absolutely can toggle and should toggle these attributes, even with stuff as simple as vanilla JavaScript. The issue is that they're not being toggled. I believe so. Right. So I set the tab index of all of these here. Hmm. And yet I'm still having issues with keyboard nav for some reason. Because yeah, other instances of menus like this that I've seen, in again, including up above, including up above on this very on this very same site, this is not an issue, but yet it is here. Because right, it does mention to write the elements in a logical sequence, and the confusing part is that they are. Like, I did the thing where I made the menu do the mobile thing. Is that in the way that this is laid out, this is logical, right? Like, where you have like essentially your initial UL, your LI item that has children, and then your sub UL, and then your sub LI element, which isn't exactly what they're doing, but that's essentially what they're doing. So in terms of layout, what should happen is like how it correctly opens the menu. Doing tab again should go down the menu now that it's open, except that it doesn't. And I'm a little bit confused how and why changing the tab index away from -1, which would understandably break that functionality, doesn't fix it. So earlier I was trying to play around just with this a little bit, so I'm going to be doing that a little bit more. Hold on. I just want to make sure I'm getting this completely correct. So here's what would be the initial UL. Here's what would be an LI inside of that, right? And here's what would be a sub UL, and here's what would be wrapped around with another LI tag. And in this case, I'm just gonna delete the other ones for the sake of time. Make the adjustments I want to make here. That is tab index 0 and aria hidden false. And I'm going to duplicate this a few times. Right, and then hovering over this, obviously I messed with the HTML, so it's going to mess with the styling a bit. Yeah, so, and this is about where I ended up at the last stream, where I made it semi-better, because you may notice, I want to see if my camera for this is fixed yet, or at least if I can fix it, because it would be extremely helpful to show exactly what I'm typing here. Is this going to work again? Yeah, if I can't fix this, I'm definitely going to switch to a different camera to show my keyboard. Because I am using a super old iPhone as a camera. I was kind of hoping just to keep using it because it kind of works, but kind of working isn't the same as working. This is getting frustrating. It looks like I might need to restart the software I'm using for it to recognize this again, because I really want this view to work. To demonstrate exactly what I'm doing. Because even though it doesn't look like it, what I did make an improvement and got us closer to where we want to be in terms of menu accessibility. And if you can see the keys that I'm hitting, you'll understand why, but it's going to be a billion times easier to show rather than just to explain. So let's see if I can at least get this working again for this stream. For reference, here's the iPhone I'm using. It looks like I got it to work. Kind of. Okay, it looks like I got it to work. And then I have like a little mount that I keep it attached to. Come on. Yeah, I at least want to get things all clearly visible again. All right. And hold on, it looks like something else got messed up too. The orientation of the I got to mess with something in OBS. There we go. That's the way I want it to be. Right. So, as I was saying, in regards to what I just did here. All right. In regards to everything I just did here. So basically, I have a UL, an LI, which has children, and inside this LI, there is a child UL, which is the submenu that opens up. That UL has its own LI elements, and inside the LI are the A tags. When I Ideally, when I hover over this, it would open. Um, which, due to various markup I changed, I broke it. If it was built this way from the get-go with this kind of markup, I don't think it would break, because I've built many menus similar to this in that way, up even very recently. Um, so as I was saying, this opens, and as I press tab again, it seems like it's doing nothing, but it is actually going through all 5 of the link before it goes on to the new one, which is closer to what we want. The issue is keeping this menu open. So I want to probably specify that, or rather, I might have been putting hover on the wrong thing. Yeah, so hover when that is there. See, I'm going to open that up in the inspector style sheet here. But hover is not the only thing you want to account for. So basically, when this LI is hovered, this stays visible. Hovered or focused, or perhaps other things too. And I might be slightly misunderstanding how focus within works, because I have used focus within on, oh, and display block was missed. And I might be making assumptions on what variation of display exactly they're using here too. So I'm going to put hover back here and just study this. Let's see. Okay, so they're actually using this display flash. I don't want console, I want sources. Because, right, like, this is basically what we want, but without me having to force it to stay open. So I'm going to get rid of that. Because, yeah, this should be sound, right? So when the parent li is hovered over, its child, which is in this case ul, oops, I did that slightly wrong. maybe if I add this thingy in there too. Yeah, and unfortunately, hold on. I'm just going to note that down because I want more space to deal with code without having the mobile menu come up. So, hmm, right, I was having the issue with that. This site is awfully confusing in how exactly it deals with. So, in that case, what's the absolute maximum amount? 1 to 20 from what I remember. And as I mentioned, inspector style sheet, let's just get all that back in there. And I wanted to include that class in the mix too. I'm just kind of trying everything I can think of here. Or wait, uh, no need for that because I'm gonna hover focus those directly. Hmm. Now we're right back to where I started. Did I break my HTML or my CSS? And I'm opinionated. I like having my brackets there. Oh, I did because class name. All right. Also, I refreshed the page and changed all of the stuff I did in the first place. Which I guess really the UL and LI is just more for semantics. I'm not completely convinced that's why this isn't working. But right. So for the button, I can do plus next to it to target the game site navigation nav drawer. Hmm. Oh, right. And of course, to make sure all of these tab indexes are not 0, which again, I'm going to take the lazy approach again and just delete these and just copy this one. All right. Hmm. Oh, actually, I think the mistake I'm making is that this is never display none. It looks like opacity is what I'm gonna want to look at, as well as a few other things. So I'm gonna try a bunch of CSS. Ah, wait, no, 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 no. Did I just reload the page? I just reloaded the page, didn't I? All right, I am determined to figure out why this menu is not keyboard accessible. That is like the one thing I wanted to do on this stream. Because like the markup looks like it should be right, except that it's not, and that's what's confusing me. Because right, like the tab index 0. So just to have a menu item in it with 5 items. And that opens up. I got it sort of to the point where it's working a little bit better, but huh. And then so is there JavaScript adding it back? And in this case, I'm gonna hover again just to keep it open. Although again, focus should also be working here. Huh. Okay, so yes, there does seem to be JavaScript at play that is correctly, I should add, um, adding these things back, but not toggling them to what they need to be when they're in their enabled state. And that's definitely going to get in the way of things. So I think at this point, from at least from what I have access to here in just the DevTools browser console, there is nothing I can do. Um, it does appear that the JavaScript required to set things from the active state to the inactive state is working, but the JavaScript required to set things from the inactive state to the active state is not. And I might as well just refresh again because I'm just about done testing with this, but that appears to be uh, that that appears to be the issue going on. So unfortunately, I have no quick fix for this, but the way that it should be working is that when this is hovered or focused, and using focus within can help with this as well. So essentially, right. So like you have like your parent li that has an essentially an li, item inside of a UL list that has children, and one of those children's is essentially another UL list that has its own LI item. Right now, it's in an inactive state where these values are correct. Tab index -1 is correct. Area hidden true is correct. But the thing is that as soon as this opens, those values should change. So once this is visible to me, this should be visible to things like screen readers as well, and then just normal keyboard users. All of these tab indexes should be set to should be toggled to 0. All of the area hidden should be toggled to false, and there should be either more CSS or more JavaScript in place to be sure that the menu stays open as you tab through the items, because the next tabbed item should not be the next main item. The next tabbed item should be going down the list, and after all AC games, it goes to news and then closes the menu. And right now, the markup and functionality is very close to this working, but it's far enough away that there's not a lot that I can do to temporarily fix it. Because again, as in the previous stream and also as in this stream, I did get it working to the extent where it will tab through those menus. But then as soon as you get to the point where it's like tabbed onto Assassin's Creed Shadows, Assassin's Creed Mirage, Assassin's Creed Nexus VR, etc., um, the pop-up goes away, even though the keyboard is actually focusing on those items. Um, Focus within is a potential solution to that, where like if you're focused within a child of a parent, then you can keep the parent in such a state to where it shows its child anyway, and you can set the CSS up to accommodate for that, or the JavaScript. So I feel this is very close. If anything, I think this is a bug or an oversight, because the markup here is correct, if a little bit semantically strange, but it's correct enough that this should work. Um, I would double check that the JavaScript is correctly toggling tab indexes, area labels, and things of that nature as needs to be when these things need to be shown or hidden. And that is going to be the solution to fixing this. So I think that's just about the end of what I have to say on that point. There's not that much that I can do in terms of testing with stuff. Thank you
Obvious
for
Clutch
the
just
follow.
followed.
Obvious Clutch. I hope I'm pronouncing your username correctly. Thank you for the follow. I really appreciate that. But yeah, insofar as that, I don't think there's much I can do to demonstrate keyboard accessibility and screen reader accessibility directly, but that is going to be, I believe, the solution to make that work. And on that note, I am going to move on. Let's see, I'm looking at my note for if there was. Yes, I did have one other thing I wanted to look at as well. And this did have directly to do with screen reader accessibility. So I'm going to refresh the page again just to get a clean slate. Get a nice big drink of water. Remember to hydrate. It's very easy to forget to do that. Yeah, right. So let's see. I covered the black bar. I briefly covered the stuttering issue, but that was such a substantial issue that I chose not to go over that any further during this stream for um, potential health reasons. Um, let's see. I went over the resizing menu. I went over the submenus. So yes, my final thing has to do with this video right here, um, specifically in regards to screen reader. And this happened when I was testing earlier, so I'm going to test again to see if it's going to happen again, where it works, but it was laid out, or at least the screen reader was reading it out in a way that's very strange. And I'll do it again right now just to demonstrate. Command F5 to open VoiceOver.
VoiceOver speaks descriptions of items on the screen and can be
VoiceOver on Chrome. Assassin's Creed Shadows for PS5,
The
PC.
VO
X
keys
focus
as well
to
as,
index to Assassin's Creed banner.
let's get
You are
inside the site.
link main end up heading level 1 heading level 2 as coming more empty assassin heading level 1 end up game side navig heading level 1 Assassin's Creed heading level 2 come empty available on PlayStation button link pre button. You are link heading level link available empty coming heading assassin heading level 1 Assassin's Creed Shadows for PS5 PC,
Right. I think
Xbox
maybe I was
X/S and
testing
more
on the
vertical
screen
line
reader on the other
Ubisoft,
computer, but it's
US.
still a little confusing
You are
here
heading
too.
level 2 Assassin's Creed coming March 20th empty group. You are currently in empty
and
group.
regarding that empty group, that comes up on almost every single site I look at. I'm going to have some comments on that.
Available on PlayStation button. You are
But the way that
currently
this
on a
just
button.
says
To
button.
click this button, press Control.
So
Option,
what this
space,
button is basically to open
close,
this
and one
pop-up,
more item. Dialog button main.
which is a good
You
pop-up.
are
I mean,
currently on a button.
insofar
To
as
click
the
this
pop-up
button,
works and
press
functions, it is
Control.
perfectly
Option,
accessible.
space. Link pre heading link available on assassin heading level 1 heading level 2 Assassin's Creed Shadows.
I'm going to open up my
You are
Chromebook again and go
currently on
through
a
that
heading
one's
level
screen
2.
reader, because I do believe it was reading it slightly different. So it's going to quickly swap computers here again. Put my MacBook over to the side. Get my Chromebook in place. There we go. Put that up. Okay, so now I'm on my Chromebook. I'm gonna close the dev tools here, refresh the page just to get a clean slate, and turn on this one's screen reader, which was Control-Alt-V.
Chromebox spoken feedback is ready. Assassin's Creed
And then I
Shadows
hold down the
PS5.
search key,
Skip
and
to
that's
main.
similar to
Ubisoft.
how the VO
Link.
key works on Mac OS
Press
VoiceOver.
Assassin video.
Right. Okay, so here's what I was thinking about, and it is in regards to the note that I wrote down. Is how it says video, which is not interactable with.
Assassin's Creed
And
Shadows.
then it moves on to the
Heading,
text.
coming March. Available on PlayStation button.
And then it
Press
goes
search
back
plus
to
space
the
to
button
activate.
that's on top of the video, which is perfectly
Dialog.
interactable with.
Button. Available on place. Coming March. Assassin's video.
And I'm just interested in what exactly the markup would be to do that, and if that's the fault of the screen reader, or if maybe this could be slightly more semantic. I did not get around to
Elements
directly
panel.
looking.
Alert.
Hold on.
DevTools is
Let me
Dr.
turn that off as I look at the dev tools here. And I may go back to my MacBook now that I've demonstrated this here, just because it handles dev tools so much better than the Chromebook does. But as long as I'm here, I figure I could at least look at what's all going on here. You know, I suppose having this in mobile view isn't bad because it's the same layout. So right, it reads this off as a button. I would add yeah, I'm not seeing. Oop, hold on. I was pressing keys I did not mean to be pressing. I'm still kind of getting used to this keyboard. I I I literally got this Chromebook in the mail yesterday, and it's the first Chromebook I've ever used. So, the keyboards on Chromebooks are slightly different for Macs than Windows. So I'm still kind of getting used to that. Anyway, I meant to add an area label. Play video. So at least the screen reader can give some context as to what will happen if you interact with the button. But I do notice that, like, some, in terms of the HTML, it does appear that the video embed, and I'll test just to be sure this is what I think it is. Yep. So that is indeed the background video. If I were to set that to opacity 0. So in terms of the HTML, and this is the way that this particular screen reader chooses to read it out, is it reads out the video embed, which is apparently, yeah. So like it's I'm guessing it's going to be, yeah, a video element, an MP4 file. So it sees the video, and then it goes over the text, the H2 tag, the P tag, um, and then it goes back to the button. Um, for whatever reason, they chose to make the button to essentially play the video by initiating the pop-up below the content. Whereas semantically speaking, you would expect it to be around where the video is. I would probably have it be inside this class right under this element. Which, me dragging it there might break things because of the way that, because obviously the CSS was written around the way that the HTML is as it is. But to be more semantic and accessibility friendly, really the button should be here. And yeah, that definitely broke everything. There it is. There the button is. Um, I could probably fix that pretty. Is position relative going to break this? Okay, position relative is fine. And then on the button, normally that would fix it, because I was thinking about position absoluting the button, but because its parent container is position relative, that would kind of corral the button inside of it. That this is something I believe would normally work, but obviously this is a site with a lot of CSS going on. So for now, I'll just get rid of it, but I'm at least going to see if that fixes the issue I was having with the screen reader. And if anything, as I mentioned, this computer is not necessarily meant for dev tool use. If anything, I would go as far as to hide the actual background video, because it's really more of a design element, whereas the thing you would interact with is the button. So I might go as far as to essentially hide this from screen readers altogether. Forgive the fact that this play button is here. Ideally, it would be here, but I'm going to open up the screen reader again and at least see what happens now. Yeah, I definitely made that look janky. All right, so Control-Alt-D.
Chromebook spoken feedback is ready. UB's play, shop, link, games, news, photo mode, more than help, pre-order ace, play video, button, Assassin's Creed Shadow, play video.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I would expect, right? Like,
press search plus
when you're
activate.
Focusing with a screen reader over the video, it shouldn't just say video with no interactability. That doesn't add any value or information that a screen reader user would necessarily care about. The button, on the other hand, does. And clicking that
Dialog.
button works.
Close.
I'm going to close that
Play
quickly
video.
because I don't want to get
Button.
copyrighted by Ubisoft.
Press search. Assassin's Creed
And then
Shadows.
after that, it goes
Coming.
to the content.
Pre-order now. Link.
And when the
Latest
content
news.
is done,
Heading
it moves
to.
on. So semantically speaking, that is the way I would go about this. Time to switch back to the MacBook now that I've made that point. All right. Let me hook that back up. All right, so I am back on my MacBook.
Shadows
Going to
for
refresh the
PS5,
page.
PC.
Also
You
going
are
to turn off
currently on a main.
screenreader.
Inside of web content, main, game side navigation, link, Assassin's Creed, games, collapsed, button,
Right.
link, news, photo mode, voiceover off.
There we go. Command F5 is how you turn that off. I just want to totally clean slate. I'm going to go into the dev tools. And I'm basically going to do the same stuff I just did, where I add an ARIA label to the button so the screen reader doesn't just read it as button. Where instead it'll be communicated as play video. I'm going to hide the video itself. And I'm going to move the button. And I'm going to move and I'm going to move the button to where it, in my opinion, should be semantically, which is going to break it again. It moves where the play button is. But this should be a semantic improvement. In this case, it outright gets rid of the play button from visibility, at least as far as I can see it. It is there. All right, just testing to be sure that my keyboard camera isn't glitching out again, as has been an issue in this stream and past streams. I'm going to open up VoiceOver again. Command F5.
Welcome to VoiceOver. VoiceOver.
Voiceover on Chrome. Assassin's Creed Shadows for PS5, PC. Banner. Link. Main list for play. And link. Navigation. End of. Link. Pre-order. End of. Game side navigation. Heading level. Play video. Heading level 2. Play video. Heading level 1. Assassin's Creed. Play video. Button. You are currently on a button. To click this button.
Imagine that it's focusing over the video and not up there.
Close. And one more item. Play video. Button.
Play video is what we want.
You are currently on a button.
And then instead of doing the video and then going to the content and then going back to the video, it just goes over the video.
Heading level 2. Coming content. March. Empty group. Available on link. Pre-order now. Heading level 2. Latest
and then
news.
It goes to the next
currently
section,
on a
which is exactly what we want. So I am confident,
voiceover off,
in my opinion, that the HTML structure and the ARIA attributes and labels I've added are an improvement over what's currently there, and that would fix the confusion, the potential confusion that screen reader users may have by essentially making the background video as it shows up there as a design element, which it essentially is because it's not interactable with. The button is the part that's interactable with. And when they get to the button, the ARIA label has the purpose of communicating to the screen reader what the button is going to do, play video. You might want to go a step further and say play promotional video or play trailer or something. I figure play video is good enough for now. That, and semantically speaking, in terms of HTML, the button that is clicked should not be below the text content. Because what was happening is that the screen reader was seeing the video, going to the content, and then going to the play button, which is using HTML, or sorry, it's using CSS to appear as if it's next to or on top of the video, when in terms of HTML, it's really not. In terms of HTML and the way the HTML is written out, the button should be immediately after the background video, and if not even inside the div itself, and should use some kind of positioning from there to be centered within that div over the background video. But the background video itself should be treated just as that, a background, a design element, which a screen reader would not necessarily need to care about. Um, and really, all of this would just make it far more semantic and far more accessible. And I'm gonna just refresh the page again just to get everything looking the way it should. As I mentioned, I wanted to make one more point on this topic before moving on and potentially ending stream soon-ish, but I'm still going to stream for a little bit longer. You may have noticed that screen reader said empty group. So I'm going to open screen reader again one more time, just real quick. And
Welcome to VoiceOver.
VoiceOver.
Voice to new tab search toolbar item Assassin's Creed banner link empty coming heading level 2
Right, so we're at the tech
coming March
20th
empty group
you
are available on PlayStation,
and then it goes to the
empty
next
group
tech.
coming March 20th empty group. You are currently
the reason why this is happening is because of a BR tag. I have come across this in so many websites, and this is something that a lot of developers, even very experienced developers, do not know about BR tags, is that screen readers often simply don't know what to do with them. It appears that Chromevox on the Chromebook was ignoring them properly as it should. Mac OS VoiceOver does not. So if I enter my dev tools and show the exact markup that I do believe is going on here. Right, so this is one paragraph where it's strings separated by a BR tag. This is arguably maybe fine markup because it's just using one BR tag. Most of the time I see this happening, it's using 2 or more BR tags to add more space, which is objectively an incorrect usage of the BR tag. In any situation, to be as screen reader accessible as you can be, and to get rid of the risk of screen readers such as macOS VoiceOver saying empty group, which is confusing, you would make this 2 p tags, and then just add CSS to get the spacing as you want it. It might take a little bit longer to code it that way, but that would be the better approach. And that's a point I make on almost every single site that I see it on, because it literally is that common. I literally come across it on like almost every single website that I look at here. BR tags are not meaningless. They're not invisible. They might be invisible to the human eye, but that doesn't mean they're invisible to everything that is capable of reading a web page. And many times when they're used in such a way to where things like screen readers will read them out as empty group. And that's not ideal. If I were auditing a site for maximum screen reader accessibility, I would definitely at least put that in the notes, that the better approach is to have 2 separate p tags, even if the text is really close to each other like this. All right, and I think with that, that is everything I wanted to talk about specifically in regards to the Assassin's Creed Shadows landing page. As I mentioned in my previous stream, I think this is a very good landing page. It's unobtrusive, it doesn't get in my way. I'm a little bit annoyed about that black Ubisoft bar at the top sometimes, but it's not enough most of the time to outright break anything. And in the one case where it does, the fix is actually super easy. Just to add a little bit more padding at the bottom on mobile to potentially get away to potentially get around accessibility issues on accessing links lower down on the page. Um, I was not able to find proof of this, but it does appear that the black bar comes up after only one pixel of scrolling up or scrolling down, and I think that's too small of a threshold. Um, as I mentioned in my previous stream and a few times in this stream, even I would make that threshold more like 5 pixels or even 10 pixels instead of one, because many devices have like a bounce or have like a bounce back functionality. I guess you could say when it comes to scrolling, and that is going to be detected as scrolling up, even if that's not what the user was intending to do. And making the threshold larger than just 1 pixel is something that could stand to alleviate issues that could be caused by that. So, with that said, I think that's everything I have to say about the Assassin's Creed Shadows site. I think this site is actually quite good, but with improvements that can be made. With the exception of the potentially epilepsy causing flashing that was on the DLC page, which is earlier in the stream. I'm probably going to edit that. I'm definitely going to edit that part in the YouTube upload. If I can edit that in the Twitch VOD, I will. Because the flashing on display on the DLC page on mobile landscape really was that bad. My intent is to figure out the issue off screen and fix it, and to actually contact Ubisoft directly about this. Because it was a big enough deal that even though, as far as I know, I don't have epilepsy, it was causing me um, issues of comfort by simply viewing it. And it was recurring on multiple devices, 3 different devices at least, physical devices that I was testing on. So it's definitely an issue that potentially thousands and thousands of users would be facing, depending on the device that they're viewing the site on, if they're viewing in mobile landscape. Um, as much as I would like to dig into that right now, the issue is such a visual discomfort and potentially even harmful to people that I am not going to be showing it on stream any further than I already have. And quite frankly, I probably shouldn't have dug into that issue at all on stream. Um, I apologize for any viewers who may have been viewing earlier and may have been caused discomfort by that. I will be a little bit more careful to do my very best to not show potentially epilepsy causing issues on stream in future streams. But beyond the potential epilepsy issue, I think this website is actually quite good and I like it a lot. Um, Improvements can be made, but that's the case with every website. So I'm going to say good job to the devs. That this is a good one. This is a good website. A couple of things I don't totally understand, but overall a good website. Um, and yeah, that's most of what I have to say about it. So I'm probably going to end stream fairly soon, but I just kind of wanted to explore around a little bit more before I do that, because I went looking through the Assassin's Creed Shadows page, but I've just been a little bit curious just to take a little bit of a look at the various other pages too, like for Mirage. And right off the bat, I like that button a lot. That is a beautiful, beautiful button, and so is this. Yep, and once again, they take a very unobtrusive approach to simply communicate to you what the game is, who the characters are, information about the game. I do find it a little interesting that the call to action at the top here is still to pre-order Shadows, even though I'm on the landing page for a different Assassin's Creed game. Whereas the call to action, obviously, here is to buy the game of the landing page I'm on. I might I might go as far as to consider that a conflict of call to actions, where generally you want to have just one call to action, whereas it appears that there are two, if not more than two, because it has the expansion page and the pre-order page. Like, obviously, I understand why they want to do that. Um, Ubisoft is going to have more of a financial interest in selling their new one versus one of the older ones. It's just something I find a little bit interesting. And I'm sure if I go to the VR game, I'm going to notice the same thing, right? Yeah, it says pre-order Shadows. So I do find it interesting that it has a call to action to pre-order the new game and a completely separate call to action to purchase the game of the page that you're on. Um, which might be potentially conflicting because it's pulling users in two different directions. Um, I'm not necessarily going to call it bad because, again, I understand why they're doing that. But as a general rule, maybe not even a rule, just as a general suggestion, I am opinionated in the idea that a web page should have a single call to action, and the web page should lead the user towards that specific call to action, instead of having two separate ones that may even conflict. Because in in many users' case, they may only have the money to afford one Assassin's Creed game. So, like, maybe they bought an Oculus Quest and they're interested to learn info about the VR Assassin's Creed, and that's the one they want to buy. But also, there is a call to action with a very pretty red button that is in a different style, even from the call to actions here, that's pulling them to buy a completely different video game. Maybe Ubisoft will look out and the potential user will buy both. I think the more likely outcome is that the conflicting call to actions would result in no sale at all. Um, I'm not a sales analyst, so I cannot speak for Ubisoft on if this is actually true or not. But that is just something I want to point out that a conflicting call to action is generally something you want to avoid within the context of a single web page. That being said, I do appreciate the fact that the Assassin's Creed page or the Assassin's Creed pages follow a very similar format. It just feels very nice to me that I know what to expect when I'm going to look at one of these pages. So I'm also going to quickly look at just a few other games too on the wider Ubisoft site. I'm probably not going to go into too much of a deep dive because 2 hours is my usual length for a live stream. But as long as I'm not quite at 2 hours, I'm just going to explore these sites a little bit and just share my thought, just passively. Hmm. This is kind of an interesting site. I think I might look into this site a little bit more too. I have never played Star Wars Outlaws. It's on my very long to playlist. I'm the kind of gamer where I buy video games a lot, but I don't necessarily play as many of them as I buy. It's kind of like what they say about your eyes being bigger than your stomach, in terms of appetite, except that for me, it's with video games. According to GOG Galaxy, where it'll combine all of my games, I own, or rather, I have licenses to more than 1,000 games. I've definitely not completed that many. I have more than 500 games in my Steam library alone. My GOG library is approaching 100. So, I have who knows how many games purchased through Humble Bundle. I have a few games on pre-order at that, as because I can't learn my lesson. I have the new game from Don't Nod on pre-order. I have Metroid Prime 4 on pre-order. There might even be another game on pre-order I have right now. Who knows? Um, Outlaws is one of the games I do intend on getting to. I just haven't yet. Nonetheless, I might review the website. Um, I might have a similar thought on the call to action, except to their credit, um, it could be considered the same call to action, the same call to action, as long as Star Wars Outlaws is in Ubisoft Plus, which I imagine it is, given that it's in the screenshot right here. So this is probably fine to have two call to actions, because buying Ubisoft Plus is essentially the same thing as buying a license to this game outright, in a sense. So advertising the two side by side isn't a conflict of interest in any way. All right, it looks like these just go to anchor links. The anchor link names are interesting. How it's just a random string. Not that that necessarily matters. I just find it interesting that their anchor links are a random string of numbers and letters, almost like a password generator. All right, and this goes to a different Ubisoft site. Let's see, what are Ubisoft's best-selling games? Rainbow Six Siege doesn't surprise me because I've heard so much, and I don't tend to like multiplayer shooters that much, but I've always heard this one is one of the best. There's various YouTubers I watch that are fond of that game, and I guess they're releasing a sequel pretty soon. Which actually, for that matter, if they are, I might review that landing page too. Because yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called Rainbow Siege 6X. Is there a landing page for that? Hmm. All right, looks like they have a news page talking about it. If they do have a landing page for this, it looks like this is just another article. All right, if there is, um, then at least Google is not, or Discover Siege X. This okay? Here it is. Here it is. Here's the landing page for Siege X, which I believe is a sequel to Rainbow Six Siege, and is probably the reason why Rainbow Six Siege is $4 right now. Yeah, you know what? Especially because there's a lot of very interesting elements. Okay, yeah, and it has like an element that compares graphical differences between a stage that must be shared within um, Siege and Siege X, where it's showing it being graphically superior. All within a slideshow too. And I am interested in the auto playing video too, because on their past site, the auto playing video. Oops, sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Please ignore absolutely everything that is on screen right now. I meant to press function F12. All right, so um, I am the one of the first things I look at when I visit a web page if I see an auto playing video is to go to the network tab and empty cache and hard refresh. Um, so I'm curious. What is the largest element that loads on the site on page load? Okay, so it appears the video is actually shockingly well optimized. Um, because I've been burned by this even by recent websites. I've talked about this a lot, but on the Monster Hunter Wilds website, the video that loads in here, and I'm gonna just allow all cookies to get that out of the way. The video that loads in here is 8 megabytes. Or at least it was as of my previous stream. Maybe they went back and fixed that, but let's. Yeah, this video. They may have optimized the video more since then. Hopefully they did. Post-launch patches are better than nothing. I do have video proof that this video did used to be 8 MB. If they did actually optimize it from there, kudos to them. It deeply needed it. I am just going to take a quick little look in my downloads folder at this video. Oh, it just shows it right here. Yeah, it looks like it's 5 MB now. So, all right, I will give Capcom credit for that. They have lowered the video so it's not 8 MB anymore; it's 5, which is still very large. I'm very happy to see in the Rainbow Six Siege X full screen video that would be the equivalent of what Monster Hunter is doing. This video does not appear to be anywhere near that size. And if my eyes aren't deceiving me, is this video 60 FPS? This really looks like a 60 FPS video. So now I'm interested. Save video as. It looks like this is it. Okay, so the video is still pretty big. It's smaller than the Monster Hunter one. I'm pretty sure it's 60 FPS. Is that something Apple is going to show me or not if I show get info? At least to my eyes, that looks 60 FPS. Well, in any case, analyzing this web page is something I'm interested in doing, but it's something I'm interested in doing later. This is probably going to be the next web page I really look into. I'm also interested in the accessibility of their various menus to see if it's any different from other Ubisoft landing pages. So I did just hit over 2 hours, and that's generally how long I stream for in any given stream. So I'm probably going to call it at that. I'm going to head back to my vacation home for a little bit here. Thank you very much for everyone who decided to tune in. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who watches later in the VODs. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much to every lurker, to every commenter. Everybody is welcome here. And I just generally appreciate all of you. I think everybody is great. With that said, I am going to be ending stream for today. And probably uploading some videos to my YouTube channel from this as well as my previous stream. So with that said, I hope everybody has a great day, evening, whatever it is, wherever you are, etc. Have an excellent one. Talk to you guys next time.